An 18-year-old star football player found dead after vanishing during a 4th of July boating trip with friends, as questions swirl about what led up to the teenager's tragic death. What do authorities know about the disappearance and death of college wide receiver Nolan Wells? Here's what you need to know. A 4th of July boating trip turned tragic in Mississippi after college student Nolan Xavier Wells went missing on Horn Island. According to authorities, Wells and a group of friends took a boat out to the island, a popular spot about 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, to celebrate the 4th. Though it isn't clear if anything transpired on the island, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office said Wells was last seen around 3 p.m., talking to a girl at the north end of the island. According to Ebony magazine, the girl's mother reportedly took to Facebook to confirm that her daughter had been with Wells, but that she didn't have any information on his sudden disappearance. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter told ABC News that Wells's friends eventually left the island to go back home without him, telling the outlet that Wells supposedly chose to stay on the oasis. But as it got dark and there was no sign of Wells, the 18-year-old's mother called to report him missing at around midnight, according to WLOX. The next day, the Coast Guard and Sheriff's Office jumped into action to try and find Wells. At least several other agencies also joined in the search, but authorities were coming up empty. On July 6, authorities got a break in the case. A U.S. Park Service ranger had recovered a body off the northwestern tip of the island. The coroner told WLOX that he had, quote, no reason to believe it wasn't him. The outlet later reported that his body was positively identified through dental records. But what led to Wells's untimely death is still a mystery, and Wells's family is demanding answers. Wells's cause of death has not yet been determined and could take weeks pending autopsy results. However, authorities told ABC News he's suspected of drowning as the investigation remains ongoing. Ledbetter told ABC News that foul play is not suspected in Wells's death. However, TMZ reported that law enforcement was looking into a viral clip circulating online, which allegedly shows several people having an argument near the Horn Island shoreline. However, authorities have not confirmed that the footage is authentic or whether the people seen in it have any connection to the college student.
What's up, family? So hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it because there's a story that's been all over your feed the last few days, and I want to slow it down and look at it with clear eyes because this is one of those situations where the narrative being pushed doesn't match what the evidence is showing. And I think it's important we recognize that. We're talking about Nolan Xavier Wells, an 18-year-old college football player from Mississippi who went missing on July 4th after a boating trip with friends, as you guys heard, to Horn Island, a remote barrier island about 10 miles off the Gulf Coast. His body was found a couple of days later off the northwestern tip of the island. The sheriff says no foul play is suspected right now. Early theory is drowning, and the cause of death is still pending autopsy results. But before that investigation even close to finished, Ben Crumb is involved. Al Sharpton is involved, and there's a press conference in Harlem. Colin Kaepernick is paying for an independent autopsy, and the narrative being pushed before we know what happened is that this is about race. Now, let me be extremely clear about something right up front. An 18-year-old kid lost his life. He was a football player. He was somebody's son. His family is hurting, and they deserve answers, and they deserve a thorough investigation, and they deserve the truth. But the truth and the story being sold to you right now might be two very different things, and that's what we're going to break down today. So let's look at what we actually know versus what's being implied. Nolan Wells was 18 years old, played wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College, went to Ocean Springs High School. Coaches said he was humble and hardworking. His mom said he was always lifting other people up. On July 4th, he goes with a group of friends to Horn Island by boat. The Jackson County Sheriff says he was last seen around 3 p.m. talking to a girl at the north end of the island. His friends left. The sheriff says Nolan chose to stay behind because he was supposed to get a ride back from somebody else. Around midnight, his mom calls to report a missing. July 6th, at Park Service ranger recovers a body, right, off the northwestern tip of the island, identified through dental records. Now, and here's where I want you to pay attention because there's a question nobody is asking. I think it's the most important one in this whole case. The last person Nolan Wells was seen was with a girl. He was talking to her at 3 p.m. on the north end of the island. That girl is the last known person to see him alive. But I watched hours of coverage and I have not seen nobody ask who that girl is, what race she is, and what she saw and what she said or what happened between them. Why is that question not being asked? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. If that girl is black, then the whole quote unquote white friends killed them story falls apart, which I'm gonna show you the story circulating what people are saying, making this a race thing. That's why I said quote unquote, because he wasn't last seen with the white friends. So if the girl is black, the narrative falls apart. That's why they wouldn't want to mention the evidence that should be important in this whole thing of who he last talked to, regardless of race. Is my point. It doesn't matter the race; it's the matter of getting a thorough investigation, and the family deserve an answer. He was last seen with her, and if she's white, then look, she's happy to be white. You know what I'm saying? But it's just a matter of fact of let the details come out and let whoever last seen answer some questions and when they last seen them, right? So when you look at that, right, why are we only focusing on the white friends is my point. When the last person he was with was this girl, right? We don't know who she is. The focus is entirely on these white friends he was friends with and the pictures of him smiling with them and implication that they must have done something to him. But the friends left the island and Nolan chose to stay. That's what the sheriff says. Now the family says that doesn't add up, and I completely understand why a parent wouldn't accept that their kid choose to stay on a remote island and ended up dead. That's a hard story to believe, and any parent would have questions. But here's the thing about that. There's also a viral video going around of some kind of scuffle. So before I get to the scuffle part, I want you guys to see two clips in regards of this making it about race. One, the first clip I'm about to show you now, which we're about to go into, I'm about to show you, happens to be the question that I'm asking, why is race about just a simple fact of understanding the death of a young individual died so young and just understanding what happened to lead to his death and removing race. And it justifies my point of why does this have to be a race thing. So check out this clip and then I'll show you the flip side of individuals making it a race thing. So here goes the one justifying that why is it a race thing from the beginning, okay?
Yo, listen. First, I want to send my condolences to Nolan Wells, right? His family, like, we don't know what happened yet, right? So I just wanted to say that. But look, listen. All the black people who keep sending me this, and the people who keep sending me the video of the white kids, the white boy choked out the little black kid out. Why? You keep sending me this because my page is about black people killing black people, the ignorance of black people, right? Us being accountable for us. Everything is about us getting our shit together, right? But if I talk about black people being ignorant, they're going to show me white people being ignorant. Look, they do it as to justify what we doing. I talk about black people killing black people. This is what they send me all day. White people who harm black people. Y'all been talking about this shit for the last 150 years, 200 years. You want me to keep talking about it? I want to know, what are you trying to do? Because nothing have been done, and y'all been talking about this shit 150 years. At least I know me keep talking to my community and keep drilling it. Maybe I could change some of the black people. No matter how many videos I show about white people doing something to black people, I could never change a racist white person's mind. At least I know I could try to change my people. But what are y'all, what y'all trying to do?
Now, and I agree on his point. He wants to hold individuals accountable, specifically black people, in regards of stop using race as a way to justify ignorance. I get his point, but I want to take it a step further because what I advocate for is standing up for the communities of all people and getting away from this divisive rhetoric and promoting unity and understanding that this is not a black and white thing. We are all in it together. This young man should have not died. And the simple fact is we need to understand letting the process play out of respect for the process and the system to why he died and what happened within that. And those, if he did play a part in his death, should be held accountable. But this should not be a race thing. Should be a respect for humanity and understanding for all our communities, no matter what race is, that young individuals should not be dying, and let alone unjust things should not take place, because what's right is right and wrong is wrong, out of respect for humanity and all our lives and public safety, and continue to be amazing individuals to continue to um, make the world a better place. As we're here, when we're no longer here, it'll still be a better place because of the things we left based on our impact.
KK, David Duke, all these years, did they do anything to David Duke? No. He's living, still, feet kicked up. He's going to die from natural causes. Same thing, J. Edgar Hoover, boot on neck, black people, whole black community, foot on neck. Did they do anything to J. Edgar Hoover? No.
Nope.
And it goes on and on and on. Did they ever bomb any KKK headquarters or anything? No. But yet you want to keep telling me to talk about what white people do to black people over what black people do to black people. That's not gonna never happen over here. That's number two to me. What we do to each other is number one. And y'all sick in the head and keep comparing it. Like, look what they do to us. So what we doing to each other, like, look, they doing it to us too. Yo, we ignorant. Look at them acting a donkey. Y'all are sick.
So there you have it, family. Now I want you guys to see the second clip in regards of this being about race. As you heard him basically saying, look, I'm going to hold black people accountable specifically for spreading this divisive rhetoric and helping the community within black people, as he wants to basically uplift individuals who are his color. I told you my stance is I'm for uplifting all individuals of color and not making it a race thing at all, but actually looking at solutions to continue to help all of our communities no matter the race. But this is now a next clip of an individual who decides to make it about race and what black people should do. He suggests, quote unquote, and who to hang around, and et cetera, et cetera.
Got to teach your kids, especially your kids that are hanging out with rich white kids. That is not good. You got to stop letting them hang out with rich white kids. This Nolan Wells situation never should have happened. The parents of Nolan Wells should have known better than to let him hang out with these kids. I have an older son. I'm not saying it's the parents' fault, but I'm just saying it happens all the time. My older son is half black. He looked more black than he did half. But he got into a similar situation. He was fighting with a bunch of rich kids in North Atlanta, the North Atlanta suburbs, the richest neighborhood in Cherokee County, Georgia. And he was fighting with a bunch of boys over a girl. And lucky for him, he didn't wind up dead. He just wound up locked up for a while. But it could have wound up with him being killed. And, we as parents, we have to do a better job in informing our children about who they should and shouldn't hang out with, because matters. The color of your skin matters, especially when you're hanging out with a bunch of rich kids that have, doctors and lawyers and judges as parents. You know that your kid is going to either wind up locked up or dead. So my heart goes out to Nolan Wells' family. I really hate that it happened to him, but you gotta protect your children, because white people will kill your children at the drop of a hat. That's just the way it is, especially these entitled little rich white kids. God loves you.
I'm going to leave it there, family. Now, I disagree and disapprove with his message entirely. And you want to take it a step further, you just have good people and bad people. And I understand he may be speaking from his trauma, speaking in regards of him saying, that his kid is more so look black looking. And the experience of his kid basically makes him look at individuals different in regards of rich kids. So, now you guys see both perspectives I wanted you guys to see. And we're going to get to the last clip of this viral video going around of some kind of scuffle near the shoreline, and people are pointing at that as evidence of a fight connected to Nolan's death. I've seen that video show some people pushing and shoving near the water, but here's what else it shows: a crowd of people watching, including black people standing right there in the water watching it happen. So if this was some kind of racially motivated attack, does it really make sense that it would happen in broad daylight in front of dozens of witnesses, including black witnesses, and nobody intervened, nobody called for help, nobody said anything? And on top of that, authorities haven't even confirmed that video has anything to do with Nolan Wells at all. So we're already building a racial narrative around a video that might not even be connected to this case. Now let's talk about Ben Crumb, because this is where the real conversation is. And I want to be clear, I'm not attacking the man personally, but I am going to look at his track record because the numbers don't lie. Ben Crumb has represented families in almost every single high-profile case involving a black person and alleged racial injustice. Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, Philando Castile, Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin's family was represented by his firm. He's been on all of them. Now, here's my question. Out of every single one of those cases, how many police officers went to jail? How many convictions were there The answer is zero. Not one single conviction in any of those cases. But what did happen in almost all of them? Settlements. The families got paid, the cities wrote checks, and Ben Crumb got a percentage of those settlements. When you're talking about multi-million dollar payouts, that percentage adds up to millions of dollars. Now, I'm not saying these families don't deserve compensation. I'm not saying the system doesn't fail people, but I want you to think about something. When a person representing you has been on every major case for the last decade and not one of those cases ended in a conviction, what exactly is the business model here? The business model is tragedy happens, race gets injected, media amplifies it, public gets outraged, city settles to make it go away, lawyers get paid and families get paid and nobody gets held accountable, and then everybody moves on to the next case. That's not justice, that's a transaction, which boils my blood because it just puts it somewhat promotes a racial grift and continues to put the divisive rhetoric and divisiveness ahead when us as a country, we're better than that. And America, that's not what makes America, right? Yes, our country is not perfect, but we have come a long way. And look how we have came. Look how far we have come. But we got to keep it up in regards of doing the right things to continue to go the right way in the country. And look, this transactional race griffin tactic, it comes off as a race grift. It works every single time because it exploits a real wound in this country. Like I said, there is a legitimate history of Black Americans not being treated fairly by the justice system. Mississippi specifically has a painful history. Emmett Till was murdered there in 1955. That's real. That's not an ancient history. So when a Black family in Mississippi says they don't trust the system, okay, I understand that. You have every right to feel the way you feel. But here's the problem. Understanding the history doesn't mean you let that history write the story before the evidence comes in. The sheriff is investigating. They asked the public for videos. They're doing autopsies. They're not closing the case, but before they finish, before the cause of death is even determined, the race narrative is already in full swing. And that's dangerous for a lot of reasons. You say that the system is flawed, but how can you make the system better if you don't even look at the flaw or even let the system operate in itself to even come together? What about these individuals being at their local town meetings? What about them connecting with their local police officers? What about them being at their local police officers' meetings with the community to make things better? Always quick to blame, but don't sit around to actually come up with solutions. So for the race grifting that it comes off as, for the divisiveness, for the dividing of our country, you play a part in the same history that you dislike. You're becoming the very thing you dislike. So first, it means we might never get the real truth because once the narrative locks in, people start looking for answers that don't fit. Second, it divides communities, which bothers me so much. That don't need to be divided over a case where race might have nothing to do with it. And third, it cheapens the word racism. If you want to be technical, when every single tragedy involving a Black person and white people gets labeled racist, every time it's a Black and white person, it gets labeled racism. The word loses its meaning. It becomes background noise. And that hurts the people who actually experience real racial injustice. Because when everything is labeled racism, nothing is. So here's the bottom line, family. A young man died. Nolan Xavier Wells was 18 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. His family is grieving, and they deserve a thorough investigation, and they deserve the truth about what happened to their son. That's all I'm saying. But here's the last clip in regards to the circulating video that the law enforcement haven't even approved yet to even say that it is legitimate, is real, and it plays a part in the case. But people are already, in a court of public opinion, making it as if it does play a part in this case, and it should, when I didn't know people were law enforcement instead of being law enforcement in a pretending manner when it comes to online. So here goes the clip circulating online, the viral video. Here's it go in slow motion. So there you have it, family. That's a circulating clip, right? So the first thing we need to keep in mind, like I just said before I played this clip, the family deserve a thorough investigation. The grieving family, they deserve the truth about what happened to their son, and that's what we need to keep in mind. But the bigger lesson here is about the danger of rushing to judgment. When a story hits your feed that pushes your emotional buttons, your first instinct is to react. We need to start asking more questions nowadays, family, and getting understanding and seeking understanding first, right? But everyone's first instinct is to react, to share, to take a side, to decide who's wrong before you have all the information. And I think that plays a part, family, in regards of, TikTok and social media where everybody's chasing, especially the youth, a viral clip. Like the viral literally of the addiction of going viral has been so high to the point where it's like in validation to feel important where I gotta figure out how to stir up a narrative and be the first one to go viral, rather is right or wrong, which blurs the lines from right and wrong, and it's dangerous, right? Because now you got people reacting, sharing, taking a side, and decides who's wrong before they have all the information. Right. And I understand the emotional buttons part because you want to get down to it. So you get impatient. A lot of people want answers right now. It's no difference when somebody's chasing a dream. They want overnight success, but it's not real. That's human. I understand it. But it's also a choice that has consequences to chase this viral clip, to be the first one to put out a narrative that's not even true. And it's damaging. It hurts those. No matter how much of a big influence you have, no matter little or small, you are influencing somebody. And the youth nowadays, the addiction to go viral, the viral literally domino effect to want to go viral no matter what the cost is, to feel important, to think that it would justify you to actually feel, I don't know, to be seen popular, right? Popularity back then, I'm 27 years old, but popularity back then used to be clicks, and you used to have to hang with the like in high school and middle school when you hang with the top basketball player, the top person on the team. Now it has turned into the top person that could be known and popular and go worldwide all across the internet to be the one that go viral and everybody see you on all the big platforms, World Star, YouTube, TikTok. And it's dangerous because when you let the media or activists or the ambulance chasers tell you what to think before you've seen the evidence, you're outsourcing your judgment to people who have their own agendas and their own bottom lines. And that's not how you get to the truth. That's how you get played. And the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 17, the first to present his case seems right. To another comes forward and questions him. That scripture is thousands of years old and it hits harder today than ever. When you hear one side of a story, especially one that makes you angry or afraid, it's going to sound convincing because it's designed to feel that way. But until you hear the other side, until the evidence comes in, until you question the narrative, you don't have the full picture. And making decisions based on a half picture is how people end up wrong and how communities end up divided and how trust gets broken. Now, for those of you who don't connect with the scripture, here's the same lesson in plain English. Confirmation bias is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. When you want something to be true because it confirms what you already believed about the world, you look for evidence that supports it and you ignore everything that doesn't, which is why I showed you the clip of the perspective of the man who basically said he has a son that's more so black and half black. And based on what he experienced, he is basically telling black families and the family should have known better, the Nolan family, because their child is black. They should know better not to hang with rich white kids, quote unquote. Like seriously, that's not, doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter your race. It shouldn't matter your social status or wealth status, whatever you want to say. At the end of the day, it's your character what keeps you. Come on, man. We got to do better. We got to do better. That's not a political problem. That's a human problem, though. When you do that, when you're looking for the truth because it confirms what you already believe about the world. And the only way to fight it is to slow down, ask questions, look at what you might be missing, and be honest about what you don't know. So here's what I'm asking you to do with this case. Wait, let the investigation play out, let the autopsy results come in or come back, let the evidence speak. And if it turns out something criminal happened, if it turns out race was a factor, then we deal with that and we demand accountability. But let's not fight for a version of justice based on the story we told ourselves before we know the facts, because that's not justice. That's another kind of prejudice. Technically, Nolan Wells deserves better than that, and so do you. Hit the like button, share this with somebody who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on your post notifications, and remember, family, spread that peace, love, and positivity. The truth will set you free. That's John chapter 8, verse 32. Not your feelings, not the narrative, not what you want to be true, the truth. And the truth doesn't need your panic to come out. It just needs time. On that note, family, peace.